Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Extreme Studios in the Pine Hills Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. I have from the great Midwest, RDV. And RDV, let me ask you real quick. What's the temperature out there right now in chilly Wisconsin?
Let me check my phone. Um, it's nice and toasty in my room. My computer power just like gives
God
out
damn
like
it, you know what I mean. Outside.
outside. Right now the wind chill it feels like it's 38.
And with the wind chill here, it feels maybe 68 because it's in the low 70s. Kind of an actually mild night here by Central Florida standards. So my question for you is are you going to take your car, drive down, and pick me up so we can bond along the way on a road trip? Because tonight's movie Dutch is all about that. It's Ed
I
O'Neill
I
for the Married
probably
with
had the
Children
same
guy.
experience. You'd be disgruntled and angry.
Yeah, this movie Dutch from 1991. It's an interesting movie in that, let's go out and say it right off the bat. Complete bomb.
Yeah.
Nobody liked it. But when people watch it, they kind of like it because, believe it or not, it's a John Hughes film. And we've talked about here on the Extreme Movie Show with some of the John Hughes films that we've mentioned that they're nice, they're cool, they're whatever, but a lot of people think they're slapstick and funny. This one's a bit more violent, it's a bit more edgy, it's a bit more
hmm
adult-like, but it still feels like Alan Silvestri from Back to the Future and plenty of other movies did the music. This is not a bad film, but it's not a fun one necessarily. And one thing I totally forgot about that we're going to dive into here,
Yeah.
when I rewatched it today and I saw Shooter McGavin with the mustache and
Christopher
class
McDonald. Yeah.
status and
Yeah.
people, being uppity.
Yep.
Hey, we have three classes: low class, middle class, and high class, and we get to see how snobs the high class are and how much fun it was to make fun of them too. So um, this is a painful movie. I don't know if it's one to go, yeah, watch it. It's a lot of fun. It's this and that, but
I
it's a film.
I've
What do you
never
think?
seen it before. I heard of it and I saw that it was a John Hughes film, and I kept hearing from I think it was you. I'm not sure who else. It might have been just you. I don't know, but said they're like, it's okay. It's a movie, and I was like, I couldn't believe that. I was like, it's a John Hughes film.
Yeah,
But then again, I don't like the movie Pretty in Pink, so so it goes 50-50 when it comes to that. Pretty in Pink had its moments, but I mean, like it was a girls' movie. This was more like Al Bundy, instead of giving him the old 1-2 and knocking the kid out for the rest of the ride, he's stuck, with basically Colin McCulkin from Home Alone, for the most part. Okay,
but an unlikable version.
yeah, unlikable because the other one, because Macaulay Culkin was likable at Home Alone. No, this was a movie. I don't hate it. I admit it's not the best, but I can see why it has a cult following. Like I said, Google has a 92% chance people like it. People watch users, where the box office it was like less than 4,000 or 15,000. They had like a budget of like 30 or something like that.
Yeah.
So it was like it didn't even make its money back. Still did better than the Marvels. No, honestly,
It's better than the Mag easily.
oh, dude, like I said, it's getting to see Ed O'Neill in a role outside of Al Bundy is a pleasure because the last time I saw him on a role outside of Al Bundy was on Miami Vice.
Yes, as the
So so
you
I
give me the
like,
drug money or die guy.
yeah, so I like seeing him, acting outside of as being Al Bundy, and because most people know him as Ed O'Neill. Oh, that's the guy he played Al Bundy in Married with Children, or if you were just born 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Oh, Modern Family. That's who he is. They don't know who Al Bundy is. So getting to see him in roles outside of that movie, because we saw him in Wayne's World. That was another one where he
Mhm.
he plays the diner, guy. I thought this was kind of interesting, seeing him playing a wholesome character, kind of for the most part. He leaves the kid, makes him walk 50 miles to the motel. I laughed at that. I was like, he serves a little. The kid almost like because he was pissing him off. They're driving. The kid doesn't care. Obviously, he's like, I'm gonna get back at you, and he basically basically Ed O'Neill says, well, I'm gonna. He pulls out a stogie out of his pocket. He's like, oh, you don't like my smoking, do you? And he's like, the kid's like, oh, don't. He's like, it's like and he starts smoking. So then the kid basically rolls out because they have power windows. That was the thing too I loved about this. Power windows, what? It's the 90s. But knocks a cigarette, but it falls between his legs. They almost crash. I would have belted the kid. Seriously, I'd be like, I would have tossed. He did pull him out, but I would have tossed his face in the snow and be like, "Eat it," you know. They said the kid was such a dick, and just because he wanted to go see his dad, or he hated his mom, he's up, he was raised being a snob. Uh, Honestly, I feel from because that's a lot of kids I knew like that, going to public school, that were divorced, or their parents were divorced, and they acted out. Some say they acted up because they want attention. No, they just figured, oh, I can get away with anything because my parents are together.
Yeah, and that whole whatever type of behavior, how it manifests itself as an attention-seeking device is pretty apparent. And I think the thing with John
Yeah.
Hughes, you can't help but compare this to like Vacation or Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which
Oh,
everybody
definitely.
loves.
Yeah.
But I think what this movie does do well is, if it kind of compared to say Breakfast Club, even Breakfast Club, you talked about people that are in different cliques and how they were forced together in detention to kind of get along. And there's some dark
Mm-hmm.
stuff in there that he gets away from. And I've mentioned before in some of our reviews that I like when John Hughes does kind of go in a darker direction, not just mention it so it exists and it's in the air, but explore it a little bit. We don't really
Yeah.
get that in a lot of his
It's
films
it's
because they
it's
are family friendly. But this one, you get the guy that's trying to do the right thing. He's middle class. This kid of his girlfriend is a spoiled rich brat, and he doesn't know it. So again, single mom syndrome, you could argue.
he's
And
got.
this
Oh, I'll
guy's
do
a
it for
schlub
you.
for going
Don't worry.
down and
Yeah.
driving it, but he says it in a pretty honest way. He goes, hey, look, I know if we're going to be spending a lot more time together or the rest of our lives together, I got to have a good relationship with him. Let me fly down, let me go pick him up from wherever it was, Atlanta, Georgia, wherever it is,
Yeah.
drive him back up to Chicago or whatever, and we'll get to know each other along the way. So you're like, okay, this is cool. It's a classic road trip, a buddy film because it's two buddies, two guys, and they brutalize each other, and it's a pissing contest of who's in charge here. And we were rooting for Ed O'Neill to show the kid what's up, because back then you could smack a kid around, you
Yeah.
could do
Yeah.
all this and that, and basically it would learn. But those rich kids, they needed a few extra whacks, and he definitely got them in this film.
Yeah. It definitely needs some chloroform and just to sleep in the back of the car. But I mean back of the car. I mean trunk.
Yeah.
Because you can also help it prepare to the Buck, Uncle Buck. Who I
Oh,
think
that's
is
a good
much.
one too. Yeah, from a few
Yeah.
years earlier. Yeah,
Yeah.
with John Candy. Everybody loves John Candy.
So when people I think that's another reason why a lot of people did not like this, because it was not in that kind of tone. This was kind of like, this wasn't your Brat Pack. This wasn't even your Uncle Buck. They were
It's not
banking.
fun.
They were
It's not
banking.
an 80s film,
No,
and it's 91.
they were
And that's one of
banking.
the reasons why I think it's not bad,
Yeah.
because this would have done worse if it came out 6-7 years earlier, I
Yeah.
think.
And the fact that, like I said, the fact it's not a Brat Pack, you said it. It's not Uncle Buck. They were banking on that. Oh, it's Al Bundy. Everybody loves Al Bundy. He's very popular, and it just goes to show you, like, this was a drama, and people were expecting more of a comedy. This was kind of a drama.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what if I was Blockbuster was still open, I would demand to put in a drama section, because it's not a comedy.
It's not funny, really.
No.
It's more shocking.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very serious movie, with a few laughs in here, mainly dark humor laughs. But honestly, I just, the whole diner scene, the kids in there, like, they're like, he's like, well, you want to eat? Okay, well, we're gonna stop and eat. Come inside. And he's between this trucker and this woman who's chain smoking, and the ash, you just see it, it's half the cigarette. It's just keep piling up. It's like, that's impressive. But I'm waiting for it to drip in her coffee, because they're trying to make it at least like the diner's really gross.
Yeah.
And everything. And I'm just thinking, it's like, it was actually, the people in there were actually kind of friendly in there.
Yeah, and that's the thing with these films. Like I think of Breakfast Club. There's a scene that gets kind of dark in there, I think, and it's where the dude, I forget his name, the one that climbs through everything, the bad boy, where he falls into the principal's office, and the principal guy comes in there. You mess with the boy, you get the horn, son, that guy. And he gets in there, and he's ripping him because he's pissed at him, talking about how he's a loser and this and that. Makes a comment, I think, about his father, and you're like, fuck, that's kind of mean for him to say it, but you could almost believe it if he would. And that's as dark as it gets.
Yeah,
and
I want to point out quickly, Ed Brewer, the kid's still alive. He's 45 years old.
Is he?
Yeah,
Ah.
because he went
Uh,
on to do Can't Hardly Wait, Empire Records, The Thing You Do, Vegas Vacation. He was older Griswold.
oh, he's the kid. He's the young son in Vegas
And
Vacation.
yeah, yeah,
Oh my God, him.
yeah.
Yeah, 94. Oh my God,
Yeah,
he
yep,
grew up quick.
yeah. And then he just his last thing he just did was in 2018 was a sporting astronaut in the Damien Chazelle First Man film.
I did not look him up. Huh.
I looked him up because I'm like he looks so familiar, the kid. And I was like he was in White Squall,
Right.
The Prophecy 2, Disturbing Behavior, Sweet Home Alabama,
Oh God.
Eagle Eye. He's been in a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So
So
it's well, the thing with kids, it's not kind of like with dogs or whatever like that. Dogs are
yeah,
really cool, um, but it doesn't having a cute dog and it doesn't make the movie or whatever. And having a cute kid or
yeah,
one that we like doesn't make it either. You still have to work around it. And I thought the point, what makes it hard, if you have never watched this film and you go to watch it, right? I
hmm
think you're immediately going to be struck by two things. One, let's just get out of the way with the kid. He's not really likable. He's how do I say this? He's not a snob because he's a snob. Like he knows he's got money. He's raised that way. So he's like a snob unintentionally that has to learn it kind of the hard way because he talks like he's like college. I mean, they write him talking like he's a smart kid and not
yeah.
a smart ass, like witty, like a Fletch, but more of an intelligent kind of guy where you'd get your ass beat talking like that to average people. He doesn't understand the
He
different.
talks down.
Yeah, it's very condescending. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
his name is
Arrogant.
Doyle Standish. And I'm like, that's the name that would get you beat up anywhere outside of the country club, right? And his quote unquote dad, of course, is Chris McDonald, aka Shooter McGavin, whose name is
hmm
Reed. I'm like, this is really good because in the 80s there was two things going on with the rich and the elite. One,
Yeah.
it was you had the whole Reaganomics thing going on after the whole thing of the 70s and early 80s. People actually had a sense of hope and optimism. We've talked about that
Yep.
here on Extreme Movie Show and Films, right? So it went one of two ways. A lot of people in film tried making fun of the rich as being completely snobbish, like in this film, and
hmm
completely out of touch with everybody else, and how they're kind of scummy human beings because they have so much money they don't know what to do with themselves. And you had your Grey Poupon, and of course,
Yeah.
as Ed Brewer would know this, the Paul Masson ads and everything
Yeah.
for fine wine.
And
It just didn't work because people in the
yeah.
80s said, no, I want to be that rich guy. I want to pop my collar every douchebag. It's a sign of success.
The 90s was different. The
Yeah.
the rich. You look at how Judge Reinhold character in the Santa Claus was kind of a uptight, rich guy.
Yeah.
Where Scott was more of the working guy. They don't like him. He was yuppie. The whole yuppie thing. Christopher McDonald plays a yuppie to the
He's so good at it.
He's
Oh
so
my God,
good.
he's so good.
Yeah.
He can just walk without saying anything. I'm like, fuck, he's so
So I
good.
said, you see all the way to Shooter McGavin. He's still playing the same character.
Yeah. Yeah.
He can just be in any film. There was another guy who just died a couple of years ago or 2 years ago. Right around COVID. I forgot what his name was, but he always played the rich guy. He was a brunette. I forgot what his name was, but he always had the perfect hair. Going sort to the side. But he always played the rich guy in all the movies. Like, he'd have he'd come out, he'd have the glass of alcohol, scotch on the rocks, kind of a ditz.
Yep.
I kind of say, like, I'm thinking it might have been the same guy we just watched in that other movie, Salem's Lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was
he reminded you of James Mason.
Yeah, no, the real estate agent.
Oh yeah, the guy that was
yeah.
Ron Burgundy's boss at the station in Anchorman.
Yeah. It's like I was not, and I said, like, yeah, I agree with you. In the 80s, the rich or elite were not, people wanted to be them, but even Miami Vice, though, they kind of like the rich. Some of them they're untouchable. That's why they paint them as that because, well, they deal crime, But I mean, like, everybody wanted to be something. You look at Scarface. He wanted to be something.
Scarface is a good example of the American dream. And I think here in this movie, Dutch, the second thing about the kid supposedly having to be this way makes you not like him, gets you drawn into what you, I think, accurately described as more of a drama here. And the little bit of verbal and physical violence they inflict on each other is somewhat amusing, but a bit shocking because, again, back in the day, if, a kid, said something out of line and you whapped them one, people would be like, yeah, and they would expect you to do that. Like if you're in public in the grocery store and your kid's acting up, it's like, get up, not whap, right on the butt. It's like,
you can't do that now. Otherwise, you're charged with abuse.
The second thing about this film, though, kind of mentioning all this class society stuff here, is it's exactly that. John Hughes liked to show that, because in here he's a middle class guy with an upper class kid.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about it, she's a single mom, and God forbid, they don't get glorified or whatever. But he's trying to do the right thing, so he's not a complete wuss ass cuck here. But and he doesn't come across the way, and we like him.
No.
And he is treating the kid with respect. He's giving the kid enough rope to hang himself with, and it's fun to watch them going back and forth, because that is how you bond, and especially the guy's version of it. And
Yeah.
I like, no matter what the different situations are, and you see where at one point they're in that shelter, right? So John Hughes would show you these different types of things that would exist. And back in the 80s, again, you felt like you could get along with anybody at any level, just about. Whereas like now, today's most movies are, you got to be either the super elite, there's like rich or poor, and no middle class. It's like, or everybody else has to be all these words that these young people like to use: an influencer, I don't mean online, but an instigator, a idea breaker, all these dumb fucking terms that are absolutely clueless in the real world. And it's striking to me. So I think that turned a lot of people off, because to your point, later in the movie it does kind of change a little bit, and it's not a bad thing, but you have to kind of
No,
go through that fire until that happens,
you
right?
can kind of tell where like it starts to turn. It's a scene right before the motel where he stops and the kids, he finds the phone book, calls his mom, and then he's crying, but he doesn't say anything because he's kind of having a coming to Jesus moment.
Trying not to be a pussy.
Yeah.
Big
And then
boys don't cry.
he walks up there, he's like, "Where's my stuff?" He's like, "Oh, I thought you were gonna freeze to death. So left your stuff in the car." And here's the keys. The kid decides, "Oh, I'm gonna drive off with the car." Instead, he pulls a stunt where he parks the car in the middle of the road. A semi truck hits it, and he thinks the kid got hit, but the kid, if I recall, the kid wasn't in it at all. And so he asked, like, the cops show up, all this stuff. Got the prostitutes outside the mall. So it's a small little like townhouse, like little baby townhouse. It's like It's basically it's like a small house. You maybe have one bedroom, but they split it into like half, so it's like little apartments, like a little cottage. And so everybody comes out there, and he basically pays like after the cops go away, he says he thanks the guy. He's like, thanks, my kid he's got emotional damage. Pretty much. It's like, here's some money, if you need to bring more parents, here's my card, call me out. And he's like, "Oh, thanks." I think he's like, "You're lucky you're old man, so you're gonna beat your ass." Like the kid, I love how like there's a whole shift in the tone in the movie from this point, because he goes in there, Dutch goes in there, it just lays right into the kid, and he's like, "What the fuck's your problem?" It's like, it's like, you could have killed somebody. Like, that guy was just trying to go home to his family. Instead, you almost killed him. This isn't a joke. It's like you're a sick little bastard. And on the kid's like, "Oh, I didn't." Just kind of like trying to realizing that he messed up. And you can see he's got a conscience growing. At least he's starting to use his conscience. And like from that point on, the movie started getting. Like I said, at that point, I was like, of this, but I was kind of like, okay, not really interested. I mean, for me, it wasn't the story. It was more seeing like the scenery, like going into the diner and stuff, and the motel, the little thing. I like that stuff. I'm more of a person that likes to do sightseeing stuff. So I mean, I like going stuff. Seeing all this stuff. So after the motel scene, that's when the movie picked up for me. I mean, that's where kind of people dropped off, because it's getting to kind of
and really it is that third act in the closing scene that kind of seals the movie, and you don't realize it until you get there, which by this point a lot of people haven't.
But the BB gun, though,
I was going to bring that up here too. I don't often try to do imitations on here, even though I love doing them. But he brought up something very popular at the time in the 80s, because I told you, it wasn't that people wanted to be rich and elite. People wanted to do better with what they could. There was this hope and opportunity with working jobs and success and status symbols and all that.
Yeah.
And so the show Lifestyles That Are Rich and Famous was super popular, because it had everybody. This was the MTV Cribs or Pimp My Ride, all the stuff was this guy Robin Leach, and because he sounded British, people thought it was spectacular, and he was just a great excitement kind of guy, and it was like, "I'm talking like Robin Leach, and I don't know why," and you're like, "I don't know what it is, but that sounds great, Robin. I don't care. We're looking at a mansion here that costs $10 here, and it's a cardboard box, and it's fabulous," and you're like, "Oh my God, look at that bum and the way he's laying there in that pile of poop," but he could sell it, right? So that was kind of the whole thing, is you aspired to be better.
It
And
was so,
it
it was
sounds
so,
cheesy,
yeah. Robin Leach
and
is
it's
so over
true.
top. I remember catching a few of those in the '90s. It's like, oh, I don't know. It's like what the hell? It's like, oh, times of the rich and famous. It's like,
No, he was pretty good.
like I said, it was so gaudy. It's like you might as well just have Baba Wawa on there.
Well, they weren't trying to make fun of rich people and that they're bad human
I know
beings.
they
It's more
weren't,
the
but like,
excessive and how
but his
oblivious they
accent
are.
just made fun of it.
Oh no, it's tremendous. We're here with Tom Jones. Tom, tell us, how did you find this fabulous place? I mean, it would just be going on and on. And
Didn't South Park do an episode with him too? Like, or they make fun of him? Because I thought they did.
probably.
I
I
don't know
think
if I-
Tom Jones has been in a couple, but Robin Leach I think has two.
yeah.
I'm a few years behind on my catching up on it, but you know, the South Park's its own conversation because South Park kind of started, there in what the mid to late '90s. But Ed
Still
O'Neill again
going.
was really really hot here. I think he exemplifies the fatherly figure because he's the one instructing the discipline, physical or
Yeah.
otherwise, here to this kid that needs it. The bottom line is too is we've only talked about him. We haven't really viewed many of them, but there was this whole mentality of the '80s of, hey, if you ain't doing what you're supposed to be doing, I kick your ass out of the house. I'm gonna send you to military school, kind of thing. Tough love, kind of training
Yes, there
stuff.
was it.
Whether it
Yeah.
was beautiful summer camp or military stuff, and it wasn't for the elite. And then here, to your point about it being kind of like a traveling movie, that's something we get that John Hughes likes doing. That's kind of cool.
Hmm.
So that's neat watching the different things, and of course the driving with the snow and the different places.
Yeah.
So I always do like that too, and it feels a bit more real,
Yeah.
and all that.
This feels like, if you're like at school and the teacher is not there, substitute puts on a movie on, and they'll just pop this, and it's like, what the hell is this? I've never heard of this. It's like watching Andromeda Strain. It's not their first choice, but once you watch it, it's like, oh, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah, and I think too that it came out at a time here in the early '90s, '91, where, again, I don't know how, because of it being dark, it wasn't in your face, happy, where you're beaming with smiles like ET and all their crap from the '80s that
Mhm.
people were force fed. It's a bit of a darker film, and it's weird because the '90s wasn't, I would say, a dark decade. It was a very mopey one, and there's some cool stuff in it. But it's just kind of weird because, to your point, if you put up Pretty in Pink, like you said, or this or that, and you're thinking
Yeah.
about high school and social class and how
Yeah.
everybody's
It
aware
was.
of
It
where
wasn't
they're
a
at
brat
and where
pack.
they're going to be and wondering about their future, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a healthy
No.
conversation to have. And in here you have it too, but it's just, it doesn't have the same outliers that people are used to from a John Hughes film because they've got their best friend that's helping them out. And on another way, a movie that's kind of similar to it, at least from the collegiate perspective, would be Risky Business, although that's not a John Hughes film. And it's, how important it was to do as well as you can, to go to the right school, to get the right job, because ultimately that's going to decide your future. And at that time it was very appropriate.
I
And you
mean,
could
you had
argue it's not that valid anymore, but back then this movie was still pretty valid for
you
how
had
things were
so many
culturally.
movies, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I don't think was that a John Hughes film or is it not? But it did.
I think it is,
I think
but
it might be. If it's not, it's
I
kind of
believe it is.
it's got the same feeling, as
Because
far as the
it's a
whole.
Chicago guy, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh
so
yeah. And so honestly, I just feel like I said, and then seeing the Chicago and then seeing like I said that's something too. Is like I like seeing like cities back in the '80s, early '90s before they got. There's a lot of stuff gets on. We know there's remodeling constantly. Things change. The whole skyline of Chicago looks totally different now with all the fancy technology, all the colored lights they have on there now too at the top of the buildings at night too. It's like the buildings have changed their looks and all, just everything. The cars, the car he's driving, it's a car. It's not a freaking crossover.
Yeah.
It's not the ugly station wagon, so I give him props. But I mean, like, I remember, dude, like Grand Dams were freaking everywhere, sedans.
Yeah.
It was just like, it was awesome. I mean, freaking Skulder, or not Skulder, Mulder. I combined them, see how I did that. But X-Files, that's what they drew. They wrote, it was I couldn't believe that the Grand Am was one of the most popular cars back then, at least in the early '90s. I don't get it, but it was. Everyone had one. What was it? Pontiac
people like
Sunfire.
traveling, and it's
Yeah.
people travel less when they aren't able to do so. And back
Chevy
then, it was a
Cavalier.
big deal to get your 2 weeks vacation, take
Yeah.
the family on a trip somewhere, see somebody else, and yeah, I mean, it
But
was a thing.
Yeah, like I said, the whole Chevy Cavalier and all that stuff, all those cars, man. I don't get it, but those cars are popular, but because they're cheap. But yeah, so if they really wanted to amp this up, make it more of a comedy and more and less, of a drama, you could still have the drama, but have the car start on fire. Now people would be like, "Oh, it's just like Planes, Trains, and Automobile," with a kid. I know. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to like say what people were not going to bitch about. I feel like more people complain about this movie today that they haven't seen it in like 20 years or
Well, I
more.
think the ending part to it, with the father, Shooter McGavin, is
Yeah.
basically he's of course because he's got resources, he's putting up the mom and the kid, and basically, there's like, I'm not going to do her like that, and so the middle class guy here, Dutch, kind of like physically kind of sort of makes him do it because if you're not on the elite level, which they demonstrate at the beginning of here with him, the caviar scene and all that stupid stuff. Well, what was the middle class
Well,
person do?
he's
Well,
being
beat
he's
the
being
shit
shown
out of
up.
you.
He's being shown up because the fact that this guy, he's not in the same class as him, is a nicer guy. You know.
You could argue that if you're going to go down the red pill kind of path here, that Dutch is a bit of a the safe bet player like that. She was fooling around with the rich dude and now she's settling for him. I think, obviously, I don't think that's what its intention was at all. But I think today's younger generation, how they are with all this kind of stuff, that's how they would see this movie. Like, what the hell are you doing with the single mom, bro? Well, oh, she's done messing with the rich guy. Now she's going to settle for you because he doesn't want her. He can have anybody
Yeah.
he wants. I mean, it's not that kind of evil film. It's about these two and their relationship getting to know each other. And what's good about it is you can say it's a happy ending, but really Dutch actually wins over Doyle, and Doyle comes to the conclusion that, hey, this guy's not that bad. He's better than my
See,
real quote unquote
so
biological dad.
yeah, I'm looking up
Through
that
the help of a BB gun.
that Ethan Embry kid got an actual award for best young actor starring in a motion picture. So he actually won for this movie. So I was like, wow, somebody actually got an award for this movie. Because I said this isn't your Oscar worthy performance. This is, you're thinking like, oh, I'm gonna get Al Bundy over the top humor. I don't.
He was married, divorced, and remarried Sonny Mabry, an actress, model type chick who I guess is the woman in the Limp Bizkit Nookie video. Good on you, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I'll just say this here for the ending. We see early on how the kid shoots him in the nuts with a BB gun, and I can't tell if they're making fun of like the BB gun, like Red Ryder kind of stuff, and all that.
Yeah.
Every kid got a BB gun, right? And then they would get like a 22, right? We know this when we talk our gun stuff. So I wonder if they're just poking fun at the wholesome ones that make me want to puke, the Christmas movies with this,
Yeah.
because at the end, not only does he win the son over and he wins the woman and all that,
Yeah.
with what he went through, Dutch shoots him back with the BB gun. I'm like, yeah, that's how it has to be, right? He said, I'm going to get you back for that. And he does.
Yeah.
That was kind of funny. That made me pop a little bit. I'm like, all right,
Well,
I get it.
That's what makes it Dutch, because the fact that any other movie wouldn't have done that for an ending.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And that's the thing. Dutch has to win this.
Yes. And like I said, this is a forgotten film.
Yeah.
I mean, unless I don't hear any. It's one of the movies I've never heard anybody talk about. Didn't hear talk about until it was you and Engelton and I were doing our our movies of the decades, the years. And you said Dutch. I'm like, what the hell's Dutch? And I think Eve really loves this movie. I can't remember. I might be misremembering.
I thought he hated it, but I really don't.
Maybe, I don't know. I thought he loves every John Hughes film. Maybe, I don't know. But honestly, I was like, Al Bundy's in a movie that came out in 1991, and it's like, it's not popular. Is that possible? I mean, I guess because Married with Children was so outlandish. It was so out there. It's like they're doing stuff like that, that you would never be able to see ever again.
Let me tell you.
Even back then, even back then, like, if they tried to bring it back in the early 2000s before cancel culture, it was just one of those things. It came out the perfect time.
Yeah, that's the thing, because with Al Bundy staring at women bending over, the stupid kind of sexual innuendo comments. Everybody was in on it. It was light, fun. There was a lot of models that would, show up, for an episode or whatever, and all that in the shoe store
A
and
lot of
everything too.
freaking
It,
porn
it
stars
was
too.
not. It was harmless fun. Nobody was offended by it.
No,
Now people mentioned about it because, oh, he has this ditzy blonde daughter and all this and that. Well, she's in on it, right? Here's the thing.
yeah,
The complaints really started picking up when, like, say, in the
this.
70s, you had this quiet kind of infiltration of the TV of making fun of the family unit. Like, and I always go back to Archie Bunker
Mm-hmm.
because it's a great show. It's well written. It's funny. They deal with a lot of topics. So you can say it's a well written, well produced, well acted show. When we covered the original Mission Impossible season
Yeah,
one of our last pair of episodes, I think 17 or 18, actually has Carol O'Connor in it, who plays Archie Bunker, and he's phenomenal. He's a great actor.
yeah.
So the idea was to make fun of Archie Bunker like he's a dumbass married white man, and we've talked about in the
Yeah.
80s the father goes away, really.
Well,
But I think a lot of this failed, and really, even though they were criticizing stuff in the 80s with too much violence and all this crap, everybody tuned it out. But when Married with Children had the sexuality going with it, and the real obvious jokes and all that, and it was harmless fun, it became annoying. And then it got
yeah.
really, really pathetic just a year or two later after this movie Dutch, really a year later, when Beavis and Bed would start, because that's when people would have national conversations about, the kind of stuff and filth that's on TV and cable and all this other bullshit and MTV and stuff.
Some
And it's like,
some
shut
kid
up.
lit his carpet on fire, living carpet on fire because Beavis and Butthead told him to.
It's
No,
so
no,
lame. I
no.
mean,
The cartoon not tell him to do it. It's called that kid was gonna start the carpet on fire. If anything, he watched Back to the Future.
they believe in aliens because they watched ET.
But I mean, you can go before. I mean, Archie Bunker was what year was that? Late 70s, early
Mid to
80s.
late 70s, yeah.
Sanford and Son was another one that was out there too. Then you
The
had the
American Benny Hill Ed singing. Oh, Benny Hill. Yeah, cancel culture eventually got to Benny Hill. He was a comic show that would have
Oh yeah, definitely.
the group of the ladies, I forget their name, and they would, oh yeah, it was just, it's embarrassing in a way, because this movie, like Dutch, I understand that it bombs. I understand that, look, it's a movie, there's going to be some implausible things to it, and you could say, hey, why don't they just do this and do that? And you've always brought up how the cell phones kind of, in a way, ruin what people can do, because it gives you instantaneous access to do things in the movie that, like when we talked about with recently with Caruso Breakdown, right? How
Mhm.
he had one, but in the middle of nowhere it doesn't work or whatever, and that was when they were starting to put cell phones in movies. But before that, what the hell do you do? And here in Dutch, what's great about it is for the most part they're together by themselves, which is what the movie's supposed to be, on screen, and they get into certain situations. It's the same old setup that we've seen time and again with other films, and allows the two actors to kind of
Yep.
figure something out. You don't have to rely on guns and explosions and stupid stuff.
No,
It's
he didn't.
learn
He didn't
something,
have.
have an experience, learn from it, see what it
Yeah.
boils into, until you have the big finale here at the end.
I say that the thing that people reason I love Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is because there's two people who seriously cannot sustain herself. One's a complete moron. One is smart, but but he's also kind of also a jerk a little bit too. And that's sad. There's a scene, like I said, the whole everybody. What do you think of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles? There's two scenes: the airport scene, and you think of the scene where they're driving the wrong way, and the guy's like, "You're going the wrong way." And then the whole devil scene where he's laughing at him, where they're going between the two semis, sparks flying, and they turn to skeleton. It was stupid humor like that. That's why it was so popular. If you would have done something like this with the movie here, people wouldn't like it regardless, because the fact that you're just copying the other movie now.
Well, it wouldn't work if this movie was
No.
lighthearted and slapstick.
No. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine if the Planes, Trains, and Automobiles wasn't like it was, if it was kind of more toned down, more serious?
It's when you have these incredible situations, it makes you focus on what's going on with the characters. And like, to your point, if it's lighthearted, nobody really likes a rich kid because they have all the benefits, for the most part. They may not be, they might have hit the genetic jackpot for a guy being tall and all that stuff, but they have the advantages other people don't. And so people automatically don't like the fact that they've got an unfair advantage in life. Not that they're going to actualize it, but this kid, the thing was, he wasn't that kid like Ed had mentioned earlier in the chat, who did it better, this guy or the kid in Over the Top. I don't remember if Over the Top, I don't think that Sage still on. I think that was Rocky 5. That was his real son, who I think died later. But the
Yeah,
kid in Over the Top, in my opinion, you just want to punch him in the face. I mean, he's got that kind of go away heat. You know what I'm saying? And it's not like he's got the ginger heat,
yeah,
right? But so he kind of warmed up. Similar kind of thing here too, right?
yeah. And sort of,
But you
yeah,
like Ed O'Neill kind of being out psychoing the kid, because that's what a dad would be like. Don't test me,
yeah.
son. Oh,
He's
Dad,
like,
I'm gonna take you out. You can't handle me in a set. Don't talk to me like that, son.
like you
Respect
said,
your
at the
elders.
very
I'll
beginning,
put you back in your place. And he
from the
does.
very from the very beginning of the movie, you knew what was his movie was going to be like. It's when he's carrying him out in the hockey bag.
Yeah. Early on, you're like, okay, it's gonna be like this, right?
That's
Or
where he's
he
going with this. It's
outplays him
like, yeah,
like he's a captive.
yeah. And I'm just waiting for the kid saying, "Help! I'm being kidnapped." Just get him in trouble with the law. Like, I'm just waiting for that shit.
It's asking an interesting question here too, for Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And of course, one of the other reasons too we did not mention, but let's be obvious, we picked this because it's a Thanksgiving film, and
Yeah,
Thanksgiving's in 2 days.
we've
So
covered it too. I mean, and it's a thing. But it's one of those movies that I'll say is one of my guilty pleasures. I like watching Planes, Trains, Automobiles. It's a fun movie. Do I
but
watch it
who
just
carried it? Steve Martin or John
honestly?
Candy?
They both equally carried it because you won't work without the other. You need John Candy's obnoxious kind of attitude, slobbish attitude. Without John Candy's underwear, you wouldn't have that scene. It's like his little thing. He can be pulling it out. He's wiping himself. Steve Martin. Steve Martin was a straight guy. He was
Yeah, he's a
basically
setup guy.
yeah. He's your Jason Bateman like today.
Yeah.
And then you work with somebody who's obnoxious. And you're just trying to basically not laugh. And that was the first, like I said, I think we're talking about this. This is the first time I think they ever worked together. And just watching on the press junkets, the interviews I caught on YouTube stuff or the DVD. Actually, I think it might have been a special features DVD commentary. And those two were just laughing at each other. Like they had so much fun working on it. A blast. Like they were sad that that it had to end. John Candy was just so just full of joy and everything. And it's just scenes in Steve Martin, like he said, he just couldn't see he couldn't help but crack up. When John Candy did something or said something, it's just like he's just rolling his eyes. He's like, "Oh my god!" It's
and all the times here that when we have
yeah,
people popping in the chat like Johnny saying, "Hey, I assume that's the old NWO thing," and I could talk about doing a survey
hey,
here,
yo,
and another one for
I'm
the
the
good
bad
guys.
guy.
Well, let me mention this about Steve Martin, and then we'll start
Yeah,
wrapping things up here. I've watched the first couple seasons and just
the
started the third.
mothership for this kid. Sorry.
Well, I've started that Only Murders in the Building show, and Steve Martin plays more of the straight guy who gets really nervous and stuff, and he does such a great job at it. I almost feel like he's coasting in it, and I don't have a problem with it. He's in his 70s, and Martin Short, I think, is probably in his mid 60s here. And so I think Martin Short is your John Candy-ish kind of character in here, because the one thing I definitely had wanted to get out about this movie, Dutch, was that he was probably the most despised kid in the film that bombed the most, except for the one Martin Short played in a movie called Clifford, which we have not reviewed. Because from everything I recall about Clifford, only having seen it when it was in the theaters, is that Martin Short made you just not like the kid at all. And I think one time people said, wait a minute, you're like in Three Amigos, you're this, that, you're a funny guy. How come Clifford wasn't funny? And I think he said something along the lines of, well, that was the kind of point. You weren't supposed to like him. And I just don't remember much about it. And I've debated
Makes
it because
sense.
I remember that being his goals, that you really got to not like this kid at all. And like being annoying, not like the old 80s, ha 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 ha, that's our son, that kind of stupid stuff. And so here
Yeah.
in Dutch, I go, man, this is bordering on Clifford levels, just how horrible the kid is. And again, it's supposed to be that way. And I think, unfortunately, that turned a lot of people off. They had gotten conditioned on the
Oh,
cotton candy crap that you got from
it's
the 80s films.
it's kind of how I felt with the movie Problem Child.
Oh, yes.
Same
Oh,
thing.
God. Yes.
That was Home Alone, but with an unlikable kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just like you flip the switch, on there, and it's like it's not even cute. Except this kid does have a redeeming factor towards the end. But I would say if you've never watched this movie, go watch it. It is actually surprisingly entertaining. I thought I was gonna go into saying oh, this sucks. I actually enjoyed it. Now, like I said, do I enjoy it as much as Planes, Trains, Automobile? No. You're not supposed to. It's not that type of movie.
We're running out of Thanksgiving movies unless they're Hallmark films, which we absolutely have no objection to reviewing those or anything from
I
Mar
mean,
Vista. I'm just saying.
I'm saying this Sunday we might start with a Dean Crane Christmas. I mean, technically, because you're supposed to do the day after Thanksgiving. That's when you start doing Christmas decorations. You start getting all that stuff up, and you start watching all your Christmas stuff. I'm saying I'm down for a Dean Cain Christmas. If you guys have a recommendation as far as which one we should watch, let us know, because I want to see Pixel cry.
Yeah, that's our goal, is to inflict him with as much punishment as possible. Just like the smarmy kid in Cobra Kai,
I mean,
seduces some guy's mom in one of these Mar Vista movies or whatever like that, and he's really a creeper. That's hysterical to me. Just like
Johnny?
no, the young kid, the one you want to punch, who plays both sides, the one that works, the Streetwise kid.
Oh, okay.
Then there's, of course, Serena Vincent from a few years ago, who's just a smoke show, a complete smoke show. I don't care if she's 100 years old. She's just incredibly good looking. And she plays like the office assistant. She does a play on the office assistant that does all your work for you and wants you more because she's psychotic, which, again, came out of the 80s because of people's desire to do well. You did well if you helped people do well, if you were a secretary or something like that. Secretary, as Robin Leach would say. And just there's all sorts of complete insane garbage out there that I think is tremendous and worth watching. But there's so many movies, just only so much time.
I'm looking at all the armor. I've watched the ones with Lacey Chabert before, just because Lacey Chabert was on it, and the girl played Wendy from Wonder Years.
Oh yeah, the math nerd who wrote books, and now I don't know what she's doing. I guess the same thing.
Yeah. So
she's aged well.
Yeah,
she seems like a sweet girl.
Wow. Like I said, like I've seen a couple over the years, and just popping in, just like, because oh my gosh, you want to make Pixel suffer? Well, watch the Lindsay Lohan Christmas movie.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen.
The overboard Christmas movie.
Dutch. Yet another small Thanksgiving movie, because in America, when Thanksgiving really should probably be the foundational way of expressing your gratitude to America and freedom, the best country the world's ever created, it gets glossed over for Christmas crap. Well, that's a function of the 80s too, and all that.
And
so
it's not Christmas until he falls off the Nakatomi Plaza.
The ref.
Honestly,
anything Larry does, I'm leery of, if you know what I'm saying.
I'm sure we reviewed Die Hard, or at least talked about it, Liz. I mean, I thought we did Die Hard 2, but
no, I don't think we have. And this whole Die Hard Christmas movie Twitter bullshit is
I love it,
that. That's why you avoid this crap, because
I love it.
It's nonsense. If you want to argue Miracle on 34th Street sucks and here's why, or this is that, we can do that. We've mentioned that before in some of our Christmas lists, right? It's just, we don't shy away from wholesome, but we like extreme. That's the whole point.
Like I said, I don't care if people say it's not a Christmas movie. I mean, honestly, I look in the was it the Night Before Christmas? It's a Halloween movie and a Christmas movie. Fuck what anybody else says. You watch what you watch. You can watch freaking Home Alone during the middle of July. I don't care.
So for anybody who gives a rat's ass, because some people may not be doing Thanksgiving, here in the compound, I do 2 turkeys. We have our turkey, and then I make a separate one myself for my 2 dogs, Daisy and Max. The German Shepherd. I always love this. My German Shepherd, Czechoslovakian, short-haired Reds that patrol the grounds, the 5-acre ground by a tiny dwarf lake here that keeps us safe from all the violence occurring here in Pine Hills by Orlando, Florida. That way we can produce the strain, because without them, there's some nights we can't go. It's the sat feed line just won't work. Because I'm off grid on this.
Are you giving them like a 24-pound turkey?
I stuff it. And you know what? I'm extreme. I actually take the stuffing and I may prep it and add some stuff to it, but I actually put my stuffing inside the turkey, which a lot of people don't do.
Do you know what's extreme? Turducken.
What's that?
Turducken. That's extreme.
What is it?
turducken. It's a turkey, a duck, and a
Stop it with
chicken.
that crap. I've heard this recently from people. That is not real. It's hybrid meat. I don't
No,
want it.
no, no. People, you good people do it themselves.
It's like over Christmas coming. I think you're right. And the Godzilla -1, the Godzilla TV show, which I'm watching right now, which is a character show so far.
Third episode comes out on Wednesday. So.
Yeah, and then we also have Jack Reacher, which I know you and I will be doing when that starts here in a
December
week or two.
15th. Yep, Reacher season 2.
Yeah, so those are definitely some on the short list for things coming up. All right, guys, 1991 Dutch, check it out. Let us know. Let us know of anything else. Thank you for spending time with us tonight. That's the best thing that you can do besides letting people know that we exist. Anything you have to plug for tonight, RDV, or this week?
Just going live at 8 o'clock and yeah, about 12 minutes or so. Yeah, talking about comic books coming out this week. Me and Zach will be on there for about an hour. So shop over. So if you haven't done so, subscribe to the Geeky Puppet Show.
Yeah, Johnny, I think you'll like season 1 of Reacher. Season 2, I don't necessarily care for the story they picked for it, but it's still going to be Reacher. I just hope they keep making them. For Ed Brewer and all the Redskin fans that are here on the Extreme Movie Show, because there are some. Because remember, Rob's Redskin review is just on hiatus right now. It's such an interesting time. It all started off for a couple years ago with Ron Rivera being hired by Dan Snyder, who just recently sold the team under a lot of congressional oversight and stuff like that. And he started off as a nervous wreck saying, "Happy Thanksgiving, everyone." And you're like, "You fuckhead." And just because we have new ownership does not mean in any way whatsoever that things are different, because the guy's gone. And it's the old expression, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Just saying, for all you Redskin fans, we know this is what's up.
Commander fans.
No, it's the Redskins. The Commanders is a different franchise, hence the name. So if the Commanders win a Super Bowl, they have 1. The Redskins have 3. Don't tell me the culture has 4, because that's a bunch of dog shit. And that's the issue that I've been bringing up for years on Rob's Redskins review, because you can't ignore what you had in your past. That matters. It matters to the fan base, not the new people and everything else too. But you know what? The biggest thing here, RDV, in all seriousness, to kind of compare to what we do here on Extreme Movie Show, we say this is an 80s based channel, right? And we're not afraid of doing other media, television and other stuff, but we all kind of put it in context and relate it to stuff like we mentioned here with Dutch. Dutch is the kind of movie, to your point, could not be made today, but it's very culturally relevant to what was going on in the 80s and what you could do with kids. That's right. Good night now. Good night now. This is Robert Leach saying good night now.
Happy Thanksgiving, guys.